Welcome to the Wing Life Podcast, where we talk about wing foiling and the lifestyles of those who enjoy this great sport. All right. Hey, James. It's great to meet you. Looking forward to seeing where our conversation goes today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Luke. It's good to line it all up. And excited to get into it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So where are you today? I see some like palm tree-esque things in the background there.
Yeah, I'm at home. So Sydney, Australia is where I live. It's where I grew up. It's where my family is. It's home. And it's the I guess early summer, or middle of summer now. So it's been nice to be home to spend Christmas, New Year's, and family time, but also juggling a fair bit of coaching this time of year because longer days, people are on holidays, so it's been busy.
Oh yeah, oh that's cool. Nice. What are the conditions like at this time of year in where you're living in Oz?
It's warm, I guess. So the temperature pretty much this time of year is around, probably low 20s to mid 30s is kind of the variability. We've got a northeasterly breeze today, so it's like our standard sea breeze. Nicer weather, normally northeasters. And then we get southerly fronts that'll come through it's hard to say exactly, but normally once a week there'll be a southerly front that comes through, cools the temperature down, wind direction changes, and then as this front goes past, the wind swings back around to the northeast to the northeast, and then another front will come through. So it's been we've had a southerly like 2 or 3 days ago. It was east yesterday, northeasters are back today, and looks like we'll have 2 or 3 days of nor'easters and then southerlies later in the week. So it's just kind of fun for downwinders because you can leave your car northeast and then go back in a southerly like the day after if you don't need your car, which is not standard for everywhere in the world, I guess.
Yeah, no, there's that's exploding, and there's some spots that are definitely better than others. But I was reading up a little bit on you, and you've done some pretty cool things in that space. M2O win this year. But before we get into that, can we talk a little bit about how you found wind in the first place, how you found water? Obviously, you were born there, so you probably got this cracking pretty early.
Yeah, so I guess growing up, both my mum and my dad both surfed, and I guess any son of a mum and dad who surfs, they get you out in the water as well. I'm doing that with my son too. So you get exposure to them, and my parents didn't really push it upon me. They sort of showed me what was there, and then it was just like one of those family activities we did. So, surf school as a kid, and then we used to surf with my dad and mum and whole family, surf trips up and down the coast. And then as I got older, Dad did a bit of windsurfing. So he sort of took us out on the local lake. Actually, I just took my son on the lake, and he taught us how to windsurf just on big boards, big sort of light windsurfing. Nice. And then we'd go to Maui a fair bit because my dad had a few friends who they do like a yearly trip over there in July, and so basically got into windsurfing that way. And then kite surfing came along, and so we all learned to kite surf, and did a lot of kite surfing trips with my family to like northwestern WA. Joined to Thailand one time for kiting, and mainly Hawaii, to be honest, with the main trips. But sort of the wings, Maui in particular, it's the wing sport mecca, So kind of grew up with it, but it wasn't really until I was in like my teenage years that I was really doing like the wing sports on my own.
Okay, that's pretty good. One thing I've always been amazed with, like people who live in warm countries, because we're in the cold and snow here most of the time, so we escape to the warm. So I always thought that people from the warm would escape to the cold for some different, but they normally don't. So I was like, anyways, sidetrack, but I was always fascinated by that point, because people from Hawaii, like my friends, will go to Bali for vacation. They won't go to like Switzerland or somewhere cold, but anyways.
Yeah. I think it kind of comes down to the cost. Snow trips are pretty expensive,
Yeah,
whereas
that's true.
Rates for the lifts and whatnot.
Fair.
Whereas, and my mum doesn't like the snow, so it's like the cold.
Okay.
It's definitely warm. So it was always that growing up. It was like we'd go. Yeah, it was mix and match. But yeah, we did snow trips too, but mainly mainly warm trips, I guess, for the for the growing up. But
Hey, fair enough. That's cool.
Yeah.
When did you get into supping and whatnot for the first time?
Yes, I got into stand-up. Actually, I was over in Maui doing, had been kite surfing for a few years, and I was mucking around with, back when you learn to kite, you generally learn in foot straps. And I was mucking around in this, which was a super fun day, and I was trying to get barreled on the kite, and I kind of just got it wrong, and sort of went up and over, and one of my feet came out of the straps, and the other stayed in the strap, and I sprained my ankle. So the next few days, there wasn't much wind, and I could walk, I could swim, but I couldn't do the pop-up for shortboard surfing. So I was like, all right. So I went body surfing one day. I just got a couple waves that way. And then my dad was like, the surf's pumping, you're not body surfing, you need to get a board. So we went to the local high tech, actually, in Maui, in Kahalui. They hire like windsurf and all the gear. And they had a few stand-up paddleboards there, and we'd seen Laird stand-up paddleboarding out at Hookeeper the year before and this year as well. And Dad was like, surely, where we get you one of these things? Let's hire one of these for the, while your ankle's still no good. So if we went and tried out some two boards, they were Paddle Surf Hawaii boards, which was, I think that must be one of the first production stand-up paddleboards.
Cool.
And we got them out at some of the outer reefs on some windless days and a bit of swell, and it was so much fun. Like, not only could I catch waves and not hurt my ankle again, but even better, we were surfing these spots that you wouldn't be confident enough to paddle out in your shortboard, because it's like, 500, 600, 700 meters outer reefs. So and so we're surfing by ourselves in awesome waves and no one else around. So we're like, maybe there's something to this stand-up paddleboard thing. And obviously the boards were bigger, but the fact we're getting so many waves and no one else around, it didn't really matter. So that was the start of stand-up paddleboarding. And that was, I don't even know how long ago that was, but that was right when stand-up paddleboarding was starting to sort of grow. And we got home, and the local shops didn't even have stand-up paddleboards yet. We actually got one of my dad's windsurf boards. We didn't have a paddle, so we got a rake, and we cut the prongs off, like a plastic rake. We cut the prongs off the rake. We're using that as a paddle. That didn't last long. And then at the local shop, WSS Boards, the owner had a custom board, stand-up paddleboard made just like from a local shaper. And so we demoed that off him for a couple of days, and then the next shipment of boards that were coming in, we bought a couple for the family, and that was the beginning of it all. And at home in Sydney, like there's waves all the time, but there aren't really good waves that often, and it's a city, so it's kind of crowded. So with a stand-up paddleboard, you could go to like outer reefs, around like sort of waves that aren't as good, but you could get them to yourselves. And so more waves, less crowds. It just made sense. Easier
in and out. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
When did you think about starting to compete?
It was a while, to be honest. Like this is when I was still in high school, and I didn't really. To be honest, I didn't even know it was there was a
sport
competition. Yeah, I didn't even know it was competition. My brother worked at the local shop, that WSS Fords, and we'd gone to a few of the local like Sydney Paddle Surf Club surf comps, and I usually, when I went to 2 or 3, and I think I always made the final and came like, I don't think I ever won it, but I was like in the top 3 at those events. But it was just like coincidence, and I hadn't really trained for it or anything. It was just like fun, something to do, and basically to try out a few new boards. I think I actually snapped a board in one of the comps.
Oh, really?
It was just a beach break, and it wasn't a good thing to do. But it's just like I grew up surfing. Like it was just surfing a big board, and I was kind of it seemed to work okay. Whereas I was competing against a lot of stand-up paddleboarders aren't surfers first, basically. So because I surfed and was a decent surfer, I was competing against guys who were just stand-up paddleboarders and didn't necessarily surf. So the guys that were winning were good surfers as well. But it was early days, and it was fun competing and doing that. But it wasn't something that I had ambitions to compete in.
Okay, but slowly kind of inched into your life and figured it would be something that you would do, I guess.
Yeah, so what ended up happening was so I was playing rugby union like through like high school for the local club Warringah Rats, which is I don't know, it's like Shoot Shield Sydney. It's like the local rugby tournament, and from there you go to like sort of it's like semi-professional, I guess, once you get into the grades, like the older years. And I kind of like I always wanted to do sport, and I kind of thought rugby was going to be like the sport that I wanted to do. As I said, I didn't even know that stand-up paddling. It wasn't. I didn't know stand-up paddleboarding wasn't a career choice. I guess it wasn't something that you do and get paid for. It was just something that you did. Then growing up, I was like the dream was like be a pro surfer, but I just wasn't. I was a good surfer, but I was never the best surfer. You know, it was like that'd be cool, but it's so competitive here in Australia and around the world now. I think I've definitely made a good choice with the alternative ocean sports. So allows it to be a bit more fluid between disciplines. But yeah, so I played rugby for ages, and then my dad was training for Molokai to Oahu. He was doing it with a friend who actually grew up with, but had actually moved to Singapore, and they were doing teams. So my dad was training in Sydney, and his friend Norby was training in Singapore. And basically we would surf at a spot, and we would drop Dad off, and then we go to a spot where the surf was good, and Dad would finish where we were surfing.
Okay.
And I always question, like, why are you paddling? Like, the surf's pumping. Why would you be paddling? You know, downwind. It's like, it can't be as fun as surfing. And, you know, now I'm the last time the shortboard surfing has definitely taken a backseat to, you know, downwind paddling or foiling or whatever, or winging, you know, whatever it is. So it's funny looking at it. But yeah, that was the first time where I sort of understood that there was like this sort of competition, I guess, in stand-up paddleboarding. And then still wasn't interested. And then I basically went to my first stand-up paddleboard event, which was the Merimbula Classic, which is a pretty famous windsurfing event. You know, all the pros back in the day used to come to it. It's had its like 41st year this year in November, and I went down to that, and I'm basically, it wasn't really the event that got me going. It was I met people that were competing, JC Shimahara, Toby Crackle, and Kai Bates, and basically there was an event in Sunset Beach on Oahu, North Shore, and they said, "Oh, you should come and do this event. You'd go for it." They said, "Oh, it'd be good. Like we can all go over and have a bit of a trip." And I was like, "Dude, Sunset Beach, we can go surf Sunset Beach on stand-up paddleboards. That'd be sick." And like in a competition, like to have it just, you know, throw the people out. I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." So saved up and flew over and made it through the trials into the main event. And I think I bombed out in the first round, but basically the organizer, Tristan, was like, "Okay, well, you've qualified for the rest of the tour if you want to come to it." And then I think the next event was in Brazil. And then there was a couple in like France and Abu Dhabi and the wave pool. And anyway, that was the beginning of all of that. So I wasn't sponsored at that stage. I was just
to pay your way kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Yeah, so good start of it all. And I think I'd started doing a little bit of racing at home. That the first race I ever did was in a northeasterly run, so not too dissimilar from today, but from Motorvale to Brownwater, which is a pretty standard run. But there was a storm coming, and the race must have started like 45 minutes before the storm hit. And this hailstorm and a southerly change, literally when we were just past halfway, we got hailed on. The wind turned direction, and my brother, my dad, and I were all paddling these boards. Like, we haven't really paddled. We're just like, "Oh, we'll do this race. It's only 8K, so we'll be fine." Like, we've done stuff in the ocean before. And this hailstorm hit us, and my dad and my brother and I were all sort of racing, and we're like lying down, like paddling into the hail and the wind and the hail. And I was actually on a 12.6, and my brother and dad were on a 14-footer. And my brother thought he kind of stitched me up, putting me on the shorter board, but because the board was shorter, it was a little bit easier to paddle into the wind. Like, it was easier to go. So I beat them. I beat my brother and my dad in that race on the shorter board, and I was like, actually we didn't race again for like I didn't do another one of those for like 2 years, as you can imagine, like a hailstorm, headwinds. It's not really what
That'd
you
be
sign
intense.
up for.
No.
Yeah. So anyway, I'd got the taste of it, and then I'd started a bit of racing at home after my dad had done Molokai to Oahu, and it was just I did a race in Brazil. There was this race in Maceió, and I didn't have a board, but Casper Steinfath had an inflatable Nash, and I was like, "Oh, can I race on that?" He says, "If you want, like it's just sitting here. You're welcome to." So like entered that. I entered the race and the surfing, and I did better in the racing than I did the surfing, even on the inflatable. I think I made the finals sprint on the inflatable, and everyone was like, "Who is this guy?" It was just,
Hey, good for you.
it's just like I come from rugby, so I had a bit of power. I had a bit of power, and so I had the sprinting was I did well in the sprint, and it was like sort of surf. It was a short sort of triangle course, and did okay. And then I sort of thought I was going to go around the distance as well, but the distance was like an upwind leg, and the inflatable was just like bouncing and flexing, and so I think I was the first of the non-pros in the distance, but like it was like I was in the second or third pack, so it was it was fun. That was cool. That was the beginning of it, I guess, the racing. Like, oh, maybe I should do this more.
And then you won 2019. You skip ahead a few years.
Then, from there on in was like I wanted to do Molokai to Oahu, and the first year I tried to get into it, they wouldn't actually. It was really hard to get into the race, and it must have been like 2015 or something, 2014 even, and they didn't let me. I couldn't get into the race, so we went over anyway and did the Molokai race, Maui to Molokai, and then we flew home after that. And then the year after, we got in because we had pretty good results of those races. And
qualified.
And then first year I came, I think it was 5th. And then the year after I came 4th. The year after that, I think I came 4th again. And then I got 3rd. And then I won it in 2019. So it was like out of a bit of a long
shit, man.
Long
That's
road.
impressive.
But it was, one of those things that just sort of, that was my goal every year, and just sort of work hard for that. And that was fun. It was a cool journey. There's a lot more to that, like board design and brands. And, it was starting with JP originally because the surf ups were good. Then I was trying to help them with their race board design. And for what I wanted to do, like unlimited racing in Hawaii, they our ideas didn't align. So I left JP and I went to Sonova, who I'm still ride for, Sonova Surfboards, and a mate of mine, Marcus Tardrew, actually we got him on at the same time because he was an up-and-coming designer of stand-up paddleboards, and basically now Marcus Tardrew and I started Code Foils together, so it's kind of like it's all led into it. But Marcus basically built me. Sonova was so good, they put so much money towards the unlimited design. I think we had like 5 boards a year, 5 like 17 to 18 foot or 19 foot boards over in Hawaii to test and play around with. And so we had lots of prototypes, and we ended up coming up with a really good design that we're happy with. And then Marcus made a very expensive, he'd custom built this board at a Nomex. So it's like honeycomb sort of carbon stuff. And he built that and basically seen himself broke. He wanted to build himself one. He built me one as well. And, I won Molokai on that board, which was, I think made it sort of half worthwhile for him because he, as I said, he went broke doing it. And then, now it seems like a distant memory, the stand-up paddle stuff. But the foiling is where it's at now. But yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Cool entry into it. And then because you're bringing all that background, and then you won this year, but it's foiling, like you were foiling this year, and you were foiling in your own gear, right? So that must have been pretty sick.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So I'd been working with Marcus for a long time on the stand-up paddleboards, and I actually got Marcus into foiling, and basically, to be able to have Marcus and his brother Ben, and then our friend Dan sort of design this foil, and then Marcus designed my foil board, and it was pretty cool to win on stuff that we had created. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
To be honest, I didn't expect it. Like my goal was to get on the podium. That was like the ultimate goal. If I can get in the podium, I'm pretty stoked, because there's just so many variables and so many unknowns. Molokai to Oahu hadn't run for 4 years, since 2019 because of COVID. So the last time I'd done the race, I was on a stand-up paddleboard, and I was foiling back then, but I'd put too much work into the stand-up paddleboard stuff to foil it. I was like, there were like maybe 10 guys foiling back then, and it was big time an arms race. I guess it was like there were foils that were higher aspect and the other foils that were lower aspect, and if you didn't have one of the fast foils, you weren't really in the top. You were in the top echelon. So the years that Kai Lenny won, he was riding like a prototype, like not a readily available production foil. Fast forward to 2023, to have won Molokai to Oahu, won a production foil. The 860R in code foils was a pretty cool feeling, So yeah, that was very, like, sort of still picturing myself, and Marcus, Ben, and Dan like on the phone after. They're like, "Holy shit, we're really good. We didn't think you were gonna win though." Like, it was just like this, It was a bit of shock for sure.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt. So back to back.
Yeah,
in essence.
Kind of in a funny way.
Yeah. Holy man. When did you guys think about like starting Code? Like, when was that kind of idea born?
So, good friends with Marcus and Ben Tardrew, and whenever I went to their place in the Goldie, and I used to stay at their parents' place when I was up there, and his dad would always be like, "When are you guys starting your own brand?" Because Ben used to design for One, and Marcus obviously for Sonova, and I was with Sonova. So they're like, "You guys should team up. Like, why would you be working for other people and doing different brands and whatnot? They're just using your info and da 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 da." And like, it takes a lot of money to start up the company, and time and commitment and all that sort of stuff. And basically, we were, there are all these options to do certain things. And early 2023, Marcus and Ben had sort of spoken to me and said, "Look, we're thinking of," or maybe even end of 22 said, "Oh, we're looking at doing our own foil brand. Would you be interested?" I'm like, "Oh, I am, but everything's going pretty well with my current sponsor. Like, there's no need to change that. Like, I feel like everything's going pretty well here. Like, all right, well, when we get something, we'll send it to you. We'll come down and we'll get you to try it, and maybe we can change your mind." I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I was like, in my head, like, we'd done a bunch of prototypes for this other brand, and I was like, realistically, they're not going to be able to make something as good. Like, it takes time to create a quality, foil, and
sure does.
Yeah, and like factories and whatnot. And so I was like, "Yeah, I'll try it for sure," but like, no promises. So it must be like February or January 2023. Ben comes down, horrible weather, but good to, foiling's good that you don't really need good conditions. I try out a foil, and I'm like, it's pretty bloody good. Like, it was for the first foil, it was amazing, to be honest. Like, it was crazy how well they made this foil, and quality was good. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have a good long hard think about this, because I had a pretty good deal with the brand I was with, and it was going to be a big call to exit that deal. I guess the contract had ended, but it was like, it was just like assumed that I was going to continue. And I was sort of start chatting to them and how it could work, and talked about, the numbers and whatnot, and how it could potentially work. And they're like, "We should do it." And we sort of looked into it, chatted to my wife about it, chatted to my family about it. And it was like, well, in my head, I was like, well, I'm going to join eventually. Like, if it's not this year, it's going to be next year. If it's not next year, it'll be the year after, because I want to do something with my mates. And that, I've done design stuff, like all the sports, like my professional, I guess, career had been with them designing for me. So it was kind of like, I'm going to do it at some point. So why not now? Why not? Why sort of hold off another 2-3 years, and why not just do it now? And so then we just made the call, and to the old sponsor, old sort of brand that was sponsoring me, and they were pretty bummed.
Yeah.
They were like, is it another brand? You go into another brand, and like is it competition? I'm like, well, it's not really competition yet. It's not really something you can worry about. And then when I told them what it was, they were actually, to their credit, they were super stoked and wished us luck. And yeah, I think they're happy that it wasn't another brand, but also, kind of happy that, because Marcus was actually sponsored by this brand as well in the past, and he was like, okay, if you got to do it, I'm stoked that it's with those people. So good luck to you, and we'll see you around. Sounds cool.
Nice. And then slowly built from there. How did the first year go for you guys?
The first year, I think we launched in like June. So we won foil. So, and that was the 850S. So the 850S is like S. It doesn't really stand for anything. It's kind of like our all-round foil. So it's great for winging. It's great for surfing, and it's got a good amount of glide that you can downwind it. And so we expanded that range from the 850 to the 980 and the 720. So basically, we had 3 foils by like sort of middle of the year. Then I think in October we launched our R series, which is what I was using in Hawaii for Molokai to Oahu. And so we basically, our plan was to make sure we had foils that were going to be competitive for Molokai to Oahu. So we had like 4 or 5 months to get like downwind foils ready to be competitive against all the big brands and all the established brands.
Whoa.
So we I don't think it's luck, but like Marcus did a lot of work. Marcus and Ben did a lot of work researching foil designs, researching all the stuff. And then Dan is an architect, so he's in charge of doing the blends, so that how the mast or even the fuse attaches to the front wing and make it super smooth and whatnot. So I think it just had the right people designing the stuff, and because we downwind, we know what the foil needs. There's definitely some brands out there that are using other methods to test stuff, I guess. Whereas because we all downwind, we know what we need, and we've all downwind in a lot of different conditions. So we know that you need a low stall speed so you can get up easy, and then once you're up, you want to be going as fast as you can. So the range is the most important thing, and a lot of people get a bit hung up on top speed. We didn't worry too much about top speed. We're more worried about average speed, because an average speed will win you a race. The top speed will get you a really nice thrill, but if it tops out and then slowly gets really draggy after that, it's not really worthwhile. So
fair enough. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So we the hard work paid off, I guess, and obviously I trained pretty hard, and I was training pretty hard on for a few years for this. The world record foil. I did 213 Ks in like 11 hours. Was training towards Molokai. If you can fall for 11 hours, you got to feel a lot of different conditions. So Molokai to Oahu conditions, but yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, how was that Guinness book? Like how'd that feel?
Yeah, that was cool. That was something my dad passed away in 2020, and
I'm sorry to hear.
We'd spoken about foiling really long distances. So my dad did a lot of triathlons and sort of endurance, like ultra marathons and whatnot. And I always said to him, like, man, that's stupid. Like, why would you do that? So it's such a harsh on the body. And he's like, yeah, but, and then the foiling came out, and he's like, I reckon you could foil around Antarctica. And I was like, it's a freaking long way. Like, that's going to take a while. He's like, yeah, but you could do it. You guys in the roaring 40s, the swells are big, the westerlies are blowing, you just go around. And it'd be cool to sort of do that. I said, why don't we start something shorter? He was like, okay, what about, why don't you go from Western Australia to Victoria, which is, along the bottom of Australia. And I was like, what about like Bass Strait? Like start with something small, which is like Bass Strait is a pretty notorious channel. I think it's about 200 Ks. And we sort of said, okay, well, why don't we try that? And then I started trying to organize that. And then COVID hit, so it was hard to even get out of the state. So we basically organized to do this sort of, went from the south coast, so 200 Ks south of where I live. We just followed back in a good southerly buster, and kind of to raise awareness of brain cancer and sort of, I guess, honor my dad's I guess, legacy and name and whatnot. And just sort of just to do what we talked about, like he was really good at planting seeds in people, and he definitely, like, he convinced someone to do, like, he was good at convincing people to do something that was, like, seemed ridiculous, but he knew that it was within them. So I guess he did that to me again, so he sort of said, do this, and there you go. So plans to do more, but it's just really hard to organise, expensive with boats and whatnot, and finding time with the family now is a little bit trickier.
Oh yeah, with your little guys starting out into the world that you're in, which is going to be pretty fun, I think.
Yeah.
How does that feel with the little one kind of just looking and learning at everything that you're doing?
Yeah.
Does it bring another dimension?
Yeah, for sure. It puts a bit of different perspective on everything. And everyone's like, when my wife was pregnant, like, oh, life's going to change for you, mate. I'm like, yeah, it will for sure. And it has, but I'd say it's only gotten better, so now it's just like, I don't want to be spending 2 hours out in the surf just sort of waiting for that perfect wave. I've been taking out, like, a big foil lately and just sort of catching one wave, just sort of linking, like, sort of 10, 20, 30, 40 waves, just going around in circles, and I'm done in like 20 minutes, half an hour. I can come back to the family and sort of take him in the ocean and have a little swim, or dig sandcastles with him, or go for a swim in the pool, or like today we're for a little fall drive in the lake with him. And just
nice.
It's more important spending time with, I guess, loved ones than trying to show how good you are out in the surf or whatever it is, or just it's just like different perspective, and you just got to make the most of your time, because life's busy and they grow up too fast. Yeah,
I hear you. Yeah. So going back to your foils and tiers, I'm just on your website now, just looking to see, like, how everything connects. You want to do maybe a high level, because we could always talk to a designer more later, but maybe just give everybody a home kind of a walkthrough of how and why you guys decided to design it the way you did.
Yeah. So Ben Tarju was designing for another Aussie foil brand. I guess at 2020 or 2019 they started, and they built their foil from scratch, and they found all the places that foils break. Basically, they found that there's weak points at the base plate. There's weak points at the mast to the fuse, and there's weak points at the front wing to the fuse, and so basically looking at this, you can kind of see, if you scroll down a little bit, I'm not sure if you can, you kind of see it tapers out pretty wide at the base plate. So
you got a taper there.
So basically, and the base plate's actually super thick, and it's a big base plate. So the reason for that was, look, that's just strengthening the connection from the foil to your board, basically to your feet. So if we can give the base plate more surface area, we can give the base plate to the mast more strength, then it's going to create more stiffness, and it's going to work better for everyone, because a more connected setup is a better setup. So
yeah, exactly.
That was the first bit. And then even like our tuttle to, I guess, our mast to fuse connection is actually kind of tapered. So when you put the front wing on, you can actually lift the whole mast up with just the front wings without even screws in it. So it like suctions in. So it's basically, it's a really tight, good, solid connection. So they were the sort of foundations that everything was built on. Strong connections was going to create a better, more efficient foil. So that was the beginning of it. And then we had a bit of, we had the benefit of a little bit of hindsight. Like, foiling's been around for a little while now, and something as simple as having all the screws on the top of the fuse, or I guess the bottom of the fuse, depending on how you look at it. But when you're setting it up, it's really annoying to screw up 2 on the top and then having to go underneath and screw 2 from the bottom and then go back up to the top. And, so just little things like or from the side or whatever it is. So, it was just like, how do we make this easy, and how do we make it, idiot proof, and what's the best way to make this, efficient and, basically, and so, and strong and all that sort of stuff. So then the fuse to front wing, it's got that sort of overlap, and then the tail onto the fuse. It's a really clean, smooth connection. So we're just trying to, maximize efficiency and make everything, I guess, hydrodynamic, so it all flows sort of through. The other thing is the fuse is pretty chunky, so it kind of goes back to what we'll talk about before, is where if one of the places that there's flex is obviously the fuse, and if you can make that thicker, then you're going to have a more connected feel. More connected feel is going to feel, you're just going to get more efficiency from that. And I think a lot of brands are sort of worried about hydrodynamics of their fuse, and then make it really small. And when it's really small, it flexes. And so if you make something, it's all a balance, right? Like you make it too hydrodynamic, it's going to have some sort of flex, or you've got to use more expensive carbon or aluminium or whatever it is to make it stiffer. So we were like, we'll make it as big as we can, because we can, once you make it big, once you've set your system, you can't change it. So we don't know how high aspect foils are going to get. We want to future-proof this. So let's make everything, solid and bigger, so that when stuff changes, we don't have to change our system. So that was the idea behind it.
Yeah, 100%. That makes sense. And then, so we got your S series wings, your R series, and then you got your tails. How many mast sizes are we going with? 75 and 85? Okay.
Yeah.
Those are good sizes. Yeah, pretty much. Most of the people I know are all running the 85.
Yeah, so here in Australia, most people are running the 75, which is...
Waves,
It's... Yeah, and also downwind, kind of like the shorter masts are a little bit more efficient. But it's it's interesting the trends that are occurring. And look, this is just the beginning, really. We've got a lot of stuff in the works, which I can't talk about. But I probably can talk about the 1300S, which is our next release. By the time this is released, it'll be out. The 1300S is just a bigger foil of the S, so it's kind of designed for dock starts, flat water paddle ups. But really, it's kind of designed for a beginner downwind foil wing. So it's easy to paddle up, and then once it's up, it's easy to turn. And what we've seen with a bunch of sort of beginner downwind foil wings is something that's easy to paddle up isn't always that easy to turn. And if you can't control it once you're up, you're only doing really short runs. So it's a bit of compromise. You want to be able to paddle up, you still want to be able to turn it. Some people, you can paddle up super easy, but you can't turn it. So this is kind of like, it's the foil that we feel is, it's just the next one we're releasing. It's a bigger one, and it's, for us, it's a good compromise of, control once up on foil and ability to get up onto foil.
Because it's pretty kind of difficult to do. And I tried my first one this summer. It was a 1500 or something, and I was wing foiling it, but we were playing between tails because we didn't know. So I think it had a 220 tail on it. It was 1560, and it was very slow, but I had a super hard time turning it. So this is obviously, you're an expert at this. So what makes a good downwind foil from your experience for somebody brand new and novice and might consider doing it on the Great Lakes or just doing it on their lake at home kind of thing?
Well, I think the Great Lakes is actually probably one of the untapped locations for downwind foiling, because
could be
that's
sick.
A massive lake. Yeah, and you guys have the fetch is plenty, depending on the wind direction and which side of the lake you're on. But I was chatting to, it was a client who's in I think he's in Michigan. But anyway, I think he was on the southern end of that lake. So he's right, and the winds blow straight to the finish. And I'm like, dude, this is the spot. It's going to be cold, but the conditions, basically the fetch is plenty, and you only need about 2 kilometers of fetch or 3 kilometers of fetch before the bumps get good. And if the wind's super strong, you need less than that. So basically, what makes a foil good for downwind foiling, and it's
for paddling and stuff.
When you're paddling, and even winging to start with, but when you're learning on the paddle, you've got to be able to get up. So I see a lot of people sort of start with really small foils, and I guess our 1300 sounds like it's small, like you're on a 1560, but our foil sections, it's quite a slow foil section, I guess. It's quite lifty for what it is. So it's got a good range, so it can go slow and it can go fast. And that was one of the most important things for us and foiling, because if you can use a foil that can go fast and slow, then it's really hard to choose the wrong foil. because
That's true.
the range is everything, and as conditions change, you're going to be able to still have the right foil because the range is there. So a foil that's perfect for learning to downwind foil is that it has a low stall speed, so it lifts like at a slow speed. So, if you can paddle and pump your board to around 10 to 15 Ks an hour, like in that sort of ballpark, you're going to be able to get this foil to lift off. And most people that put a bit of time into it can get paddling to that speed. And then once you're up, you want to be able to maneuver it pretty well. And look, the problem is, and so you want it to glide well. The problem is if you're looking for glide and you're looking for easy to get up, it's going to be hard to control, basically. So you can go really big span and really small chord, and it's going to glide forever. But it's going to be hard to turn. It's also going to be harder to paddle up in some respects because you go too high aspect and it's like you push through the water column. You're sort of paddling and you're pumping and you sort of stall out. It doesn't just take off. So there's this sort of, you're balancing speed, glide, and drag. And if there's too much drag, you lose your speed. If there's too much glide, there's no drag, but it's hard to get up because you need to go fast as well as slow as well as fast. So it's just this combination of a few different things. And yeah, we're still working on it. I'm not saying we've nailed it, but it's like this is our biggest foil to date. And for us to learning to downwind foil, it's really easy to maneuver for, I guess, how slow it lifts. And once you're up and going, it turns well.
Now, for fuse length and tail choices, is there something like for winging? Like some buddies are riding 60s, 50s because we want like. On the lakes, I like just some snappy kind of quick turns. I'm not jumping, but we're snappy stuff. So are you looking different fuse lengths or tails for what, like based on your different levels for downwind?
Yeah. Generally speaking, like for when I'm coaching, like a longer fuse is going to make it less cardio intensive, I guess, once you're up and going. Too long a fuse can make it like hard to pump though. And it depends on the fuse and tail combination, I guess. So if I'm using a really long fuse and a really big tail versus the same tail with a short fuse, the long fuse is going to make the tail feel bigger and the short fuse is going to make the tail feel smaller for the same tail. And it's all about leverage. So if this is my tail and it's moving up and down this much with the long fuse, and so you're moving up and down this much in the short fuse, it's something that I've only really found out in the last sort of 2 years, but the fuse length makes a big difference on this, how small or large the tail feels. Likewise, if I use a smaller tail and a longer fuse, or it'll feel bigger, I guess, and the smaller tail and the shorter fuse is going to feel smaller. So same thing, but just you can change tails and fuses, I guess, to create different feels. And generally, what I found is you want to be able to paddle up the smallest tail you can get away with, because once you're up, like tails or stabilizers are just for stability. They're not helping you with speed, and the bigger the tail is, the more drag there is, therefore the less glide you get. So if you can paddle up a 142 square centimeter tail versus your friend who can only paddle up 188 square centimeter tail, on the same, once they're both up, the person on the 142 tail is going to glide for longer, just as long as they get it to the speed that the foil wants to run at. The other thing is in lakes versus ocean, generally the lakes have a bit less energy, so because there's less fetch. So sometimes if you use too small a tail or too small a fuse, you're actually going to be going faster than the bumps are. Therefore, your foil never gets to the speed that it like wants to sit at. So you actually feel like you're just stalling out, so the tail suddenly just drops. So you can use a bigger tail or a longer fuse to create more drag. And more drag means you go slower, which means therefore instead of going too fast for the bumps, you're going too slow for the bumps or the same speed as the bumps, which allows you to then enjoy the bumps. So the worst thing you can do is go too fast. The second worst thing you can do is go way too slow. And ideally, we're looking for that,
middle zone.
Yeah, right in that middle zone. But I guess what I always say is I always prefer to be overfoiled than underfoiled. And that's if this is the range that you want to be in, I prefer to be overfoiled because at least I'm getting up. Whereas if I'm underfoiled, I'm not getting up, and if I do get up, I'm just flat water pumping the whole way downwind, and you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, no, that takes some of the fun, definitely some of the fun out of it.
Exactly.
How were some of your first wing foil sessions? You've been out winging and stuff out there too?
Yeah, so it's funny because like for me, I learned to wing foil after I already knew how to downwind foil. So a lot of people learn to wing foil and they'll use the wing to get themselves up and going. And then once they're going, they'll like just sort of, hold the wing, like free wing, or I don't know, some people call it witching, whatever you want to call it, but they hold the front handle and they put it wherever they want to put it. And they'll ride downwind. And most of the time what I sort of see is people that want to learn to downwind and they're using winging to learn to downwind is they're using too small a board, which doesn't really matter, and also too small a foil, which also doesn't really matter that much. But if you're looking to eventually get into the like downwind without the wing, one, it's hard to paddle up a smaller board, and two, it's harder to paddle up a smaller foil. So while it could be super fun, it is super fun winging on a small board and a small foil, sort of zipping through the bumps and just doing those big turns for progression and to learn to do it. I guess for me, and some people say like downwind foiling is like the pinnacle, like it's where you want to get to because it's like opens up a lot of different options. Yep. You don't need to rely on, I guess, necessarily don't really rely on wind. It's just, it opens up a lot of things. So wingers, my advice for people that are winging that want to learn to downwind foil is use gear that you got to be using when you learn to downwind with the paddle, I guess. And I've done a few different things with the wing, and it kind of revolves around trying to get rid of it. And that's either holding it in the backhand, so I'm natural foot, so left foot forward, right foot back. I always try to downwind with the wing in my right hand. I try to get it behind me. So when I'm going downwind, the leading edge is facing downwind and the trailing edge is facing upwind. And the trick to that is just trying to keep it nice and low below your hip height and like drag the strut in the water. And if you're going fast enough, if you're going faster than the wind is, you'll actually hold that wing behind you. But it's more like downwind foiling with a paddle or just getting towed in, because you can kind of turn and the wing stays out of the way. To me, the biggest benefit of wing foiling is that we're so efficient and you can get rid of the wing really easily. Wave riding, you just compared to kite surfing or windsurfing at the sail in your face, kiting, you got getting pulled around by these, this big kite and long lines. Winging, it's a really small sail relative to other things. It's light and you can get out of the way super easy. So, most of my winging, I guess, journey has been, how do I get rid of this thing now that I've used it to get up downwind or get up and into the waves? And so the Anchorman from Cloud9, they've done some pretty cool little anchor. You just throw the wing away and it just doesn't blow away. And then there's the deflate downwind where I literally deflate it and hold it on my arm. And then I pump it back up when I get to the end of the run and go back to the start. And or then like a re-inflate as well. So I've got like a CO2 canister and I've reinflated it whilst foiling downwind and then sort of just sailed back upwind.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So you put your bag on do you put your bag on your back if you do a full deflate and kind of just put it in the bag and then go down, or?
Originally I did, but like to stop and pack it up is a pain in the ass. So I prefer to just deflate it and just have the middle strut still inflated. So I'll just like sort of roll it up and I'll hold it under my arm and then I'll deflate for as whatever run I want to do. And then when I get to the end, I get the pump out of my backpack and I'll pump it back up, or I'll just finish on the beach where I want it and drive back up. But yeah, it's like my winging journey has definitely been a bit different to other people's. I've never really been too interested in the freestyle stuff, mainly because, I don't know, I just never been good at backflips even as a kid. Everyone does backflips, and as a kid I did the backflip on a trampoline and I landed weird and I bounced off and into a rock and got stitches in the eye, next to the eye. So maybe I'm scarred from that. But just the aerial stuff has never been my deal, and the speed stuff hasn't really either because I grew up surfing. So to me, winging is awesome because it's like having a jet ski, but you can get rid of the jet ski.
Yeah, definitely. So for somebody brand new or they're looking to get into foiling, what would make Code a bit different, for example, from other brands? Are you guys niching towards something specific, or would it be a great all-round foil?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Code, is a like we're a new Aussie brand. We're run by like there's 4 foilers, and that's the company. Like we're literally there's 4 of us, and that's who's running it. We're not even a year in. Our benefit is that we foil. We all foil a lot, and because we all foil, we understand the conditions, at least that we have here in Australia. We know what we're looking for in terms of to get the most out of a foil. So range, stiffness or connectedness, I guess. And look, I guess we're growing. So at the moment we've just got sort of I guess we call it the middle range for what we use. We've got, what we've released so far is the middle, and we've got bigger and smaller to come. But it's it's just the beginning, and we're excited
to see you guys grow and see what like year number 2 brings, because my buddy was all about you guys, and he said, man, you have to talk to James and have to see how this stuff is made and set up and where it's going. And it's a good all-around foil, so it doesn't matter if somebody's wanting to get into waves or just kind of free ride or downwind. Code kind of covers a whole bunch of different ranges for people.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of pigeonhole us as a downwind foil company, which is fair because we all downwind foil. We're all pretty pumped on downwind foiling. And obviously winning Molokai to Oahu on the foil makes it seem like it works pretty good for downwind foil.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you'll see throughout like all brands, they'll design a foil for something and they find it actually works really well for something else as well. So, like the like dock starting and, basically a dock start wing should actually work pretty well as a downwind foil wing as well, because it's all about the glide and the ability to glide. So, also our surf wing, we find works pretty good. Firstly, I don't know that like Marcus does a bit of the freestyle stuff in the winging, and he loves the S series for wing. Okay. He's on the 720S all the time. He's about like 60 kilos, and he's doing, I don't know the tricks, but he's doing tricks and jumps.
Yeah,
and he's awesome. Like just the solid feeling and the And then obviously if you want to do like downwind winging or pumping, like working on your pumping with, surfing or winging or whatever it is, the R series is going to work well. And we've also done a bit of like sort of bigger wave, sort of toe stuff, which isn't really a big market, I don't think, but it's something that I'm passionate about. And this is something a bit different, and kind of going back to your question before about fuse length and tails.
Yeah.
I've downwind the 720S, which is our smallest foil. In good conditions, but I'll use that with a pretty small tail, so like the 150 or the 142 tail with a medium fuse. When I am towing, I actually use the same front wing, but I use a long fuse with that biggest tail, so a 188, and which, if you told me that a little while ago, I'd have been like, why would you do that? A bigger tail means you go slower. The advantage of the bigger tail is it creates more stability, so the stab, bigger tail creates more stability, it makes you go slower, but by shimming the tail half a degree negative, it gives you a little bit extra speed, but you still have that stability. So I can't pump between waves on the 720 with the long fuse and the 188 tail. I can on the 720 with the medium fuse and the 150 or the 142 tail, which is strange, right? Like you wouldn't think that would be a thing. You'd think a bigger tail would make it easier to pump.
Yeah.
It doesn't all the time. Depends how big. It's like I said, full as a range, and you go too big and it makes it no good. You go too small, it makes it legal, but there's a little bit in between. So, but for turning, I guess the bigger tail with a longer fuse gives you a lot of stability. It means you can just sort of rip the turns harder, and it makes the foil feel completely different just by changing fuse and stab and the size of the fuse and the stab. So it's just something to think about. Like, something that to me, it's like I was saying before, it's like only in the last sort of 6 months have I figured that out, and that's like, wow, I didn't know that. So.
There's so much to it. Like I talked to Clément Rosario this morning. He's a French guy, and he's surfing Mavericks and Nazare, and we talked a little bit about foiling and that stuff. And he was saying that what his problem was is that he was going so fast that the wind would push his board up. And so he would get lift from the foil. And so we talked briefly about it, and he was like, we went through a lot of the safety, but the big thing is like, how do I keep this thing nose down so that I can get this thing going, keep it controlled, and then make everything either a bit heavier because he's hitting like 70 or whatever. He's charging big time. So like, I'm always curious as to what everybody thinks about this, because it seems to be that there's like, it's going to push that way slowly to bigger and bigger stuff, but you have to do it like within control.
Yeah. I was chatting to a mate the other day and they're like, well, why do foilers want to surf where surfers are? Because, you know, in Australia, we have lots of, you know, surf beaches, and, you know, foilers are, it's just going to happen. Like, foilers are becoming more and more, like, they're sitting out in the same spots as surfers, which, look, you don't need to, but I understand why people want to, because basically when you're learning, same as when you learn to surf, you don't need very good waves. So, you know, like, bad waves are great for learning to foil. But once you already know how to foil, you want to get yourself in, like, gnarly or, like, more critical positions, I guess. So you want to get, you know, not so much crumbling waves, you want to get to waves that are kind of pitching. And then you want to get into waves that are kind of barreling. And then you want to get in bigger waves. And then you want to, you know, go foil Nazare or whatever it is, and you at Chopu or whatever it is, and you've seen that. So that people are always like, well, why would you want to do that in the foil? It's not designed for that. And while it's not designed for that, it's like, why would you want to go surf a big slab like that? Surfboards aren't really designed for that either, but it's just a challenge. And so the reason I think, and I think it's going to become not a problem, but we're going to see, like, I guess, things happen. Like, surfers run into surfers. It just happens. Foilers run into foilers, and surfers run into foilers, and foilers are going to run into surfers. And it's just like the problem with foiling is we're using a really big fin, and it's kind of sharp in some places.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think we're going to have to learn to coexist, because people say in Sydney's eastern suburbs, so Bondi to Maroubra, you're actually not allowed to foil during the patrolled hours. So basically, you're not allowed to foil when the lifeguards are there to tell you you're not allowed to foil. And that's because, one, it's super busy, but also when they started, I think something must have happened and there was like too much, I don't know, someone complained, and now foils are banned from beaches. And like, even if someone's doing a downwind run and they're coming into the beach, foilers have copped grief for coming into the beach. You know, but like, where are they supposed to come in anyway? If it's like, it's dangerous, more dangerous for them to stay out, but they're saying it's dangerous for a foiler to come in through the surf zone where other surfers are. So it's, you know, basically we're gonna have to navigate, I think, as foilers being the newer thing. We've got to sort of take a bit of common sense, and like, we don't need as good a wave as much as you'd like a better wave to foil in. Surfers have been doing it for longer, and they go slower than us. I think actually someone spoke to me the other day. The best way to sort of police like that sort of stuff is whoever's going slower has right of way. So that means swimmers have right of way over surfers, which I think is about right. And surfers have right of way over foilers, same as a jet ski or a boat has to give right of way to a foil, or, you know, or like when you're winging. Actually, winging's been a thing too. Like, I've been winging in some locations like cross offshore, and there's been surfers out there too, and they get really annoyed at first. I always stay clear of them, but they're like annoyed that I'm buzzing past them. Like, you know, not close, but just, you know, they're annoyed that it comes down that they're annoyed that I'm going and they're not. They're sitting there. Yeah,
I think so.
Maybe more of that, but that's, I think, what it comes down to. So it's like just giving space and, I guess, understanding and communicating. I guess I always sit down and chat to the person. Like, I'm just going to catch a few waves. Like, I'm not going to be out for long, but this is really good for winging. And, you know, most of the time I'm catching the waves you don't even want. So just so you know, I'm going to be here for 20 minutes. And just communication, I think, is really important.
Okay. Yeah, I found that because I was in Tofino, like on Vancouver Island this year, and I was wing foiling that, like Long Beach, and there was 5 or 6 surfers there. It was the same premise. They were looking over, and then I was just lapping stuff, catching the shoulder, kicking out, not getting into any sections. So I was just kind of learning in the waves. And they were pretty decent about it. One guy waved over. Some were kind of grumpy because you are catching a lot more. You're getting a lot more action. So it's like, and for that aspect of things, I can get it. But I think we'll just have to learn how to coexist. And it's just so awesome that we have more and more products coming out, more and more companies coming out with some unique styles of things, and that we're all going to be able to kind of enjoy all the variety of disciplines that foil is going to bring. So it can only get better.
Yeah, and that's kind of the exact reason that I guess I've been really into the downwind stuff, is because surf zones are only going to get more crowded, is the way I see it. Like, even the lesser quality waves are already, you know, getting crowded here in Sydney. And it's like, Like sometimes I'll be out foiling on my own bank by myself, and then a surfer will paddle out because they said that I'm sitting there. And I'm like, I'm sitting here because it's the worst spot along the beach and there's no one else here. Why did barbers? Oh, we saw you get a couple. Like, yeah, but I'm on a foil. Like, it's a different sort of, we're looking for different things. Whereas downwind foiling, when it's super windy and you're out to sea, there's literally bumps everywhere. And I'll be went out with 10 people the other day. Once I got going, I only saw 2 people. Like, so there's 10 of us launching and starting at the exact same location. Once we're going, there's one person 200 meters that way, and there's another person 200 meters that way. And then there's, it's just like, and you're usually trying to ride the same bump, but then you sort of peel off and you go left, I go right, and all of a sudden we're hundreds of meters apart. And you got to sort of work yourself to get back to get. So basically, downwind foiling in my lifetime, I don't think it's going to get crowded. Whereas surf foiling and surfing and all that stuff, I've seen it already through surfing, through stand-up paddle, through kiting, to now foiling. It's just getting more and more crowded everywhere. Every surf zone is getting more crowded because it's, everything's just getting bigger and everything's getting better. And there's brands are pushing more surf craft. Surfing from the 90s to now has changed a lot.
Big time.
WSL is a lot more sort of pro than what it was back in the 90s. So it just, this means more people doing it, more people having fun out there, but also more people to share with, which is, that's the key word, I guess. We got to learn to share.
Yeah, pretty much. And we get to share and we get to try out all this cool gear and all this brand new gear coming out. I'm pretty stoked to see this, and I'm looking forward to getting to be able to try it. Are you guys going to head down to, I know it's a pretty far journey. Are you heading down to AWSI next year?
We're talking about it. We were kind of bummed we didn't make it this year. We actually prioritized the Hood River, the Gorge Paddle Challenge.
Okay.
Over, I think, just because we were in Hawaii and we're like, oh, we can go do that and we can kind of, talk to the shops there and talk to the people that are there and sort of tap into that market. But AWSI is definitely on the hit list this year. We're lucky enough that Foil Drive actually brought a code foil over with them. They're mates of ours. And we said, if you're going over, can you grab this? And Josh from the foil shop in Seal Beach, he lent him a few foils too. And while we weren't there, our foils were, and we got a good bit of feedback from just our foils being there, which was cool. But yeah, it'd be cool to get some representation from Code Foils itself rather than just the foil drive and friends of ours.
Well, that's a step one, man. We can't expect too much from you guys for your first year. Coming out with a foil as good as it is, I think, is a pretty good first step. And then I'll be there next year. So even if your foils are there, I'll definitely take them out for a rip and see what they feel like. I think that place is, it was my first time foiling there. It is insane. It is so good.
Yeah, I haven't been there for a while, and the foils have gotten a lot better since I've been there. But even when I was there honestly, I think last time I was there was 2018, and it was fun then. But I know there's a lot more people doing it now, so it's just got to get, for downwind, which is what Hood River basically is. It's epic.
Nice. Well, hey, is there anything else you want to kind of chat about, introduce the community? Anything else that you think comes to mind?
Join the Code Foil Riders group on Facebook. That's something that's getting a bit of traction now. I'm not sure how many members we have, but it's there's more discussions going on in there. So if you want to know more info about Code Foils, head there. I also coach, so Coach Casey Club is something that I've sort of developed over the last 4 years now, maybe 4.5 years now. It's an online resource that you can learn to, someone asked me the other day, how do I get better at pumping? What do I need to buy? And I was like, well, probably a Coach Casey Club membership, because people try to buy their way to being better at something. And look, you do need the right equipment to a certain extent. And, but the best sort of benefit, the most cost beneficial way is $50 a month, 50 Aussie dollars a month, which is even less, 50 Aussie dollars a month. And I can sort of look at your technique and sort of help you hone in your technique and make it suit to your equipment and your conditions. So, and I guess there's not too much of that sort of stuff going on at the moment. So yeah, if you want to improve your foiling, check out the Coach Casey Club, because it's
Cool.
Something that's it's grown a lot over the last little bit, and I've taught a lot of people to downwind foil, in the last couple of years through like having never met them, just through this platform, which has been pretty rewarding.
Oh, nice. So for your $50 plan here, you get access to Coach Casey Facebook group. You got all your online courses and training programs, weekly talk back, Tuesday group video calls, and access to replays if you miss out. So for those not watching on video, just on audio, I'm just kind of going through the website right now. And then you have direct access to Casey's email. So that's pretty cool. So minimum 3 months from 50 to 525. So you got 50 monthly, 150 for 3 months, 285 for 6, or you can go annual. And then you got your premium, which is that big step up. Do you want to walk us through what premium would sound like for people?
Yeah. Look, premium is pretty much exactly the same. So the weekly sort of coaching calls are like open to everyone, all members. Whereas the premium, you get it's a personalized coaching call. So every 2 weeks we sit down and we have half an hour where we chat about whatever you want to chat about, and we go through any videos that you've recorded in the last little bit, and we set up like a personalized training program and drills and skills and stuff to get you sort of ready to go. So it's just a more personalized thing, and not everyone's as confident in the group format. So for those that are a bit more, I guess, shy and just want the best information for themselves, then the premium is sort of what I recommend.
Beautiful. And then you got camps, clinics, you got workshops, sup lessons, downwind sup lessons, sup and prone foil, downwind foil, learn to wing ding. That's always pretty good. Cool. That's awesome.
So if anyone's ever in Sydney, I do like in-person lessons too, which I actually get a few people that like they'll holiday to Sydney and they'll like know that I live here, and they'll be like, "Oh, James, are you around? I'm in Sydney for a week. Do you want to do a lesson?" So if anyone's ever in Sydney, in Australia, and I happen to be home at the time, we can definitely catch up for a one-on-one, which is always a bit of fun. But there's also the camps and the clinics, and looking at running a few this year. I'll end up in Europe later in the year in August, September. And so I'm going to run a few things over there, and I'm in Hawaii in July. So I'm looking at running a few things over there as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to North America, like mainland, I guess. Definitely be flying through at some stage. The code team are going to be, there for Hood River and the Gorge Challenge and AWSI, but it's kind of a bit of a busy year. I go to the Maldives in June for a foil camp on a big luxury boat with moon tours,
that's going to be fun.
Yeah, which has been a fun one. I did before COVID. I was doing stand up sort of tours over there with moon tours, and last year we sort of trialed a bit of foil and stand up, and then this year it's just foil. So we're going to try to see if we can find some uncrowded sort of foil zones, and definitely not limiting it just to surf zones. All the channels where the atolls where the water runs out, the wind's going along. It's epic bumps for winging and downwind foiling, and dock starting off the boat into the bumps. And there's a few different ways to sort of have fun over there, and with a liveaboard boat and a dinghy, and we have a jet ski as well. So it's going to be some fun, that's for sure.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah. All right. So just head on over to your coach. So it's what's your URL for that for people at home?
It's CaseyAUS.com. So CaseyOz.com, and check that out, because it's a fun one. I actually just came back from the Motu as well, and that was a pretty fun trip. If anyone's never heard of the Motu, you need to. The Motus are it's Disneyland for ocean sports. An island basically sandwiched between 4 or 5 like world-class surf breaks, Cloud Break, restaurants, the Motu lefts, Wilkes, swimming pools. There's all these spots that are just like awesome waves on their day for surfing. But then if it's windy or if it's closer, like smaller, it's amazing for foiling. So you can actually book me as a coach at the Motu and the Motu website as well, if you want to head over there and work on some any sort of foil or surf or stand-up stuff, which is a pretty cool opportunity as well.
Like this place.
Yeah, that's it. That's the little island.
Yeah, that's an Motu Island Resort. Whoa. All right, for folks at home that aren't on YouTube, you might want to hop on YouTube to watch this. This place is phenomenal. Whoa, that would be pretty sweet. It's a little tiny spot, eh?
Tiny island. Actually, I've only been there once, and it was only about a month ago, and I actually never walked around the entire island just because I was too busy doing stuff. We're just like flat out the whole time I was there. But basically, I guess the left side of the island, if you're looking at it, like the sandier side of the island is where you get on and off, and there's basically snorkeling, and there's foil waves right out the front there too. But anyway, it's amazing. It's somewhere that it's got to be on the bucket list for sure. The Motu, it's a cool place.
Okay, good to know. Well, hey James, thanks for taking time out of your Sunday morning to talk to us over here in North America, and stoked to see and try out your foils. I'm gonna tell George we had the time to chat, and I'm really looking forward to trying these puppies out.
Yeah, no, really excited, and yeah, thanks everyone who's gotten behind us so far. It's been not even a year yet since we launched. It's about 9 months, or maybe even less, sort of 7-8 months since we launched, and it's been a journey. And everyone that's been a part of it, just asking questions, interested about the Code 4 stuff, or having tried it or even bought it. Thanks for your support, because we're growing, and it's only going to get bigger and better from here. So yeah, really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight, and stoked to see you all next time.